Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday. This is a beautiful day in Boston, and I'm really excited to go out there and go drive to some lessons very soon. But I got some business to take care of, and that business today is another edition of Are You In? Now, today I'm talking about an album that just missed my top 10 in 2017, and I talked a little bit about it on my part 4 of albums of 2017, but I would like to dig a little bit deeper into it this time and give it the attention it deserves. And this album is Manchester Orchestra's latest album entitled A Black Mile to the Surface. Now, for those of you who don't know who Manchester Orchestra are, they are a indie rock band from Atlanta, Georgia. Their members include Andy Hall on lead vocals and rhythm guitar and piano, Robert McDowell on lead guitar, keyboards, and vocals, Tim Very on drums and percussion, and Andy Prince on bass guitar. They've had 4 previous albums, one being I'm Like a Virgin Losing a Child in 2006, the second one being Mean Everything to Nothing in 2009, the third being Simple Math in 2011, and the fourth being Cope in 2014. Now, I hadn't heard of them until Cope. Basically, when I was listening to some albums on Spotify, this advertisement for Cope just kept coming up, and I heard little snippets of it and thought it was interesting. And I remember liking Cope, though I haven't listened to it since 2014, so I'm not exactly sure how much it still holds up. But let's go to 2017, where I'm listening to a bunch of albums that are very mediocre at the back end of that year, and I'm trying to hit my 100 quota, and I'm really hating my life at that point in time because there's nothing coming out that's interesting. So I turn to this album, and I find it to be very refreshing and really energized me to get through the rest of my 100 album quota. Now, the question is, why is this album so good? Well, I'm here to tell you that. The first thing that I really like about it is the music, for the most part. In the front half of this album, the music is really cool and has some very interesting ideas. Nothing on a tonal sense, but more of a rhythmic sense. The ones that stand out in that part are the Gold, where you have the verse being 6 bars each time. And what I mean by that is Andy Hall will say a line, and that line will span 6 measures, which gives it a really interesting feel in comparison to the 4/4 that's in. That's the most of the song, the 4/4 of most of the song. Then you have the song The Moth, where you have some other interesting ideas, where the intro is the song being in 3/4, but the intro is spanned into 2 parts. One part being 7 measures long, and the other part being 9 measures long. And then when you get to and that part spans throughout the song. And then when you get to the verse, again, when Andy Hall sings a line, it's a 5 measure part, and then the next line will come in. So there's some use of some rhythmic ideas that are really cool. Not to mention, the music itself is a little bit harder than what I thought it was going to be when I first like how I remembered Manchester Orchestra to be. It felt at the beginning it's a little bit of a harder rock, which was a really cool sound. Something that I hadn't really heard much of that year. The way that they approach it. And then there's still some other interesting ideas about the rhythmic changes. I believe it's lead South Dakota, I'm not exactly sure. There are some parts where it slipped into 7/4. So the cool thing about it, and what hooks me on, is the interplay of meter that keeps me engaged, as well as just the sound itself. The second part is the harmonies on this album are very powerful, and just the way that they're recorded, it sounds almost angelic at points. So you hear some really cool harmonies on the maze, on uh, the gold, all of these that just help build this song. For example, the gold, I mean, the maze is about um, Andy, or the main character, talking to his baby daughter, and the baby daughter talking to him, at least like subconsciously. And the idea of the baby daughter is new into this world and has to learn from the father, and the father is learning to be a parent at the same time, to make sure that he gives all that he can to his baby daughter. But as the song goes on, more and more voices come in, more and more harmonies come in, and you get this crescendo of power that builds up into the gold, where it transitions from major to F sharp minor, which is the relative minor of A. So a nice little transition where you have this hope and hope and hope in this song, and in the F sharp minor one, where unfortunately it's not as hopeful because it's talking about a marriage on the rocks, where it's being like where the metaphor of a mine collapsing, which is not exactly sure if that meant that he was working at the mine and it collapsed, and now he's in the state that he's in because he can no longer work, or if it's just a metaphor in general. But it's showing where the family is getting torn apart, and it's a very powerful song, and the harmonies themselves give more power to that, especially in the chorus part. So you already have some really cool songs that at the beginning that just grip you. Even the moth has an awesome feel as well, where it's basically, from what I understand, it's the main character looking at himself, whether it's he's already lost the family, or he's just looking into what he used to be and trying to better himself. And like there's that's at least the music side of it. So unfortunately, on the latter half of the album, the music or the rhythmic ideas aren't as strong, but there is still some really good music. For example, there's a three song span where you have the Alien, the Sunshine, and the Grocery, that all have kind of the same idea and sound. And the Alien does it best. The Alien is my favorite song on the album. A very just somber song, like an open song where it's just whole on acoustic guitar, and there's bass, and there's like brush drums, and it's a very open song that deals with a certain thing that's happening. I believe it's when the man's making a decision to potentially end his life, and like all the people that affect. But the really cool thing about it is the imagery of the town itself is really interesting, and that's another highlight on this song, of this album, is the lyrics in general. There's so much imagery, and it builds up this town that it makes you interested in what is going on, even if you don't always understand what's going on. So on this understated song, you have these very powerful lyrics about everything that's going on, and like, well, the cops are coming, and this is like the cop is the high school bully of your brother, and it's just like these little details that fit so well into these songs. And then you have the Sunshine, which feels a little bit weird, though I do kind of understand that maybe it's the father going to his daughter one more time and just saying how much he cares about her before he does his final act. It's a short and sweet song, so that's why it doesn't like lose any points. But at first, it feels weird where it is. And then you have the Grocery, which is where the big incident occurs. So from what I understand, it's the guy he has a gun and he shoots people up and then kills himself. That's what I'm interpreting and what others have interpreted. There might be something else to it, but basically, you get to see this whole entire story, uh, front to finish, where it's a guy who basically wants the best for his family, but it can't do anything about it with his job being lost and his family getting torn apart and his father dealing with health problems. So he takes the only belief that he thinks he can do, um, especially in this little town. There's some beautiful lines that like encapsulate the feeling of what's going on. So if we go back to Leeds, South Dakota for a second, um, there's a part where it's saying the snow is piling up our temporary grid. It was just like this time last year. There's nothing in the wind, just white up to the trees, and it's been that way for eternity. So from what I'm interpreting there, it's talking about this town never changes, and you never can escape from this. It's just going to be like this for all eternity, and that's a very powerful message to bring across if you're feeling hopeless and you're feeling like you can't change anything around you. So it's an interesting idea, that heightens what this character is feeling, and that brings up to the grocery, where it's a slow build song, um, that like interchanges acoustic guitar and electric guitar, to the soft and heavy feel. And why it's so interesting to me is that there's this tension that just keeps going on. It's diagramming the what's happening at the grocery, where he's getting everything ready to go, and he's figuring out what exactly he's going to do, and it builds up to this crescendo at the end, where it's the last chorus, and it's like there's nowhere that you can go from here, and it's just a very chilling song, and that eventually gets us to the rest of the album. But there's an interesting line, at least to me, where he's talking about, I want to reach above the paradox where nobody can see, want to hold a light to paradigm and strip it to its feet. I want to feel the way my father felt. Is it easier for me? I want to know if there's a higher love oblivious to me. So this is a man who feels like he has no more options, and he just wants to feel the way that he's supposed to feel. And when I first interpreted it, and what I thought it was, but was completely wrong, I guess, was that he was kind of tempting God to be like, if this is not what's supposed to happen, then this done is going to click, and then nothing's going to happen. And doesn't seem like that's the case, because later on it seems like this character has passed on, and this is where it gets a little bit confusing to me. And if anyone knows more about this particular album, I would like to know, because it gets a little bit tricky as to what is going on, and that's a detriment a little bit to the end of this album, where the last 4 songs, they're not bad, it's just it's weird if I don't exactly understand what's going on. From what I'm thinking it is, the wolf is him crossing over, and before he dies, seeing what he's done and reacting to it. Then you have the mistake, where it's, from what I understand now, it's in the voice of the wife, who is finding out all about this and is trying to understand what is going on and what she can do. And then the weird one for me, if this is the case, is that there's the parts where it's a song from the husband to the wife, about everything that they've been through, and leading up to wanting to be a father and still wanting to know her and getting to know all her parts. Now, what it could be is, this song of just remembrance of how this family used to be beforehand. And if that's the case, then that makes a little bit more sense. And then we have the silence, where, from what I'm gathering, is the mother talking to the child, talking about, you can never really escape this. This is now part of your legacy, and I'm very sorry for that to happen. And If it does, then that means the crescendo of this music makes it even more powerful, gives even more gravitas to what is going on. So I would say that the latter half isn't as strong as the first half, though you're talking about up until the grocery. So you're saying 7 of 11 songs are awesome, and then the last, even the wolf is interesting as well. It has some nice drum work, even if it isn't anything, you know, challenging in terms of complexity. Um, you the final 3 songs, if you will, aren't as great. Even though sounds is good, the parts is it's very open. It's just Hall singing with acoustic guitar, but you can barely hear the acoustic guitar in the background. So you definitely need to turn it up if you're going to listen to it. It's all of it is a very well conceived album, and even when the music isn't as strong, the lyrics are interesting to listen to. Hall's a very good storyteller, and you can definitely hear it in his voice, and you can definitely hear it in the lyrics that he has created. He's created a world that's full of so many interesting characters and full of so many different interactions that are just, even though they seem everyday, sound more interesting when written out in lyric. So I really, really like this album. I would recommend it to anyone who likes indie rock or anyone who likes alternative rock in general. It might seem a little bit bland on the back end, but it's well worth the whole entire CD listen. There isn't, I mean, if you want to hear certain songs to get you into the idea of what it's going to be, The Alien is a very good song. The Gold, um, The Grocery, Moth, all 4 of them are in my top 4 of that album. So if you want an idea of what this sound is, definitely go for those first and then listen to the whole entire album. But I can't recommend it enough to other people. Just know that it's not like the complexity of some of these other albums that I've talked about. There is some rhythmic complexity in the beginning, and it hooks me on, and then from there it's the lyrics that draw you in afterwards. So I hope I gave this CD enough justice now, and I hope you enjoyed all I talked about. And if any of you have some more information on the actual story of this album, please let me know, because I would love to dive more into this so I can understand it. Apparently, there's another little part that's more scientific about this, and I don't necessarily know much about it. Some sort of experiment that went on in Leeds, South Dakota. If you do know, please let me know, because I would be more interested to understand the story so I can listen to it again with some more knowledge. But that's all my time for today. And if you like this, of course, give it a like and comment on other albums you'd like me to review, as well as share this with your friends, and subscribe to my channel so you can see what I'm doing next and just see everything that I'm working on. So Friday I'll have a cover song, and that's going to hint to the album that I'm reviewing on Sunday. So keep your eyes peeled for that, and until then, I will see you in the next video. Peace.